Rob Arnold. I am the president of Barrel Hub and Advanced Spirits. So Barrel Hub is an online marketplace for bulk whiskey, and that sounds kind of generic, but I'll try to explain what we do. If you think about the brands that exist in our space, some of them are purely distillers, right? Or what we would call DSP. So they're making their whiskey from scratch. That's great. I did a lot of that as a distiller at TX. But there are also brands that are built on the approach of sourcing whiskey from the bulk market, whether it's in barrels, so barrels of whiskey, but it could be totes or tankers. But typically barrels of whiskey are being sourced from the bulk market and used in a way where a blender can come in and really create something unique and special through their talents, even though the whiskey wasn't made from scratch by that company, by that brand. And so we adopted this moniker called Non-Distilling producer in the United States to denote a brand that sources whiskey from the bulk market to create their products. There's nothing wrong with that. It takes a lot of talent to do it good. It has a long-standing tradition, right? I mean, in Scotland and Ireland, they go by different names. They're usually a little more romanticized as well. So independent bottlers, blenders, these are all just synonyms with each other. The idea is brands that source from the bulk market to create their products. We're not the only online marketplace for bulk whiskey, for bulk spirits. There's the long-standing tradition of analog approach to this, where brokers or traders have access to inventory that they can sell to brands, the end user, the actual buyers. I think where we really differentiate ourselves, where Barrel Hub is different than the competitors, is on the transparency element, which we really pioneered. We are not trying to hide the cost of the barrels, that we don't choose the cost, right? The seller does. But we're not trying to create pricing inconsistencies or facilitate price gouging. We're trying to create a fair playing field so that buyer and seller can agree on a price, is hopefully a fair market value and provides good returns to everybody involved and allows that brand to have nice margins on their end to then grow their brand. That's what we ultimately need, is for brands to grow. But maybe more so than that, what makes us different is that flavor-driven element. We already incorporate much more information into the listings on Barrel Hub than most of our competitors, and we're really just getting started. We have plans in the next few months to really start to launch and integrate things like sensory data, flavor chemistry data, and how these things, not just for the customer to review, but how do they use this information in an effective way to make decisions on what barrels they should buy for their brand. And that's key too, because you can get lost in all of this data. Fortunately, we have the experience and the knowledge to really help consolidate or distill down, pun intended, all this information so that they can use it in a way that's effective and make the best decisions for their brand. I'm actually from Kentucky. I grew up in Louisville. I'm a third generation member of the bourbon industry. So my uncle and my grandfather and my great uncles, most of them worked for Brown-Forman. Some did other endeavors along the way, but I grew up around it. I have a science background. I was doing a PhD in biochemistry and started making beer and maybe some whiskey at home, and it spiraled from there. And now it's my passion and vocation and all the above. Most of them were actually in marketing and brand kind of ambassador roles. My uncle was on the engineering side, so building distilleries, not actually running the equipment as a distiller, but helping to build and install column stills, pot stills, fermenters, all the above there too. But I had a lot of good family friends along the way that, grew up with my uncle specifically, that were on the production side as distillers. And that's what I became as well. So my career in the industry started as a distiller. I spent 10 years as the Master Distiller for TX Whiskey in Fort Worth. And even though I'm not a hands-on active distiller today, I still think of myself as a whiskey maker and someone my passion for this craft is so much devoted to the flavor of the whiskey, the development of flavor, where those flavors come from. That's what gets me excited. I I've got such deep roots in the industry. I mean, I live in Texas now, but behind me is a picture of Louisville, Kentucky. I can't help but think of my family and the time they've spent in the industry every day I go to work. I love the science behind it. I love the craft. You know, it obviously is a distilled spirits bring people together. It's a means to celebrate. It's a means to enjoy flavors that are hard to find in other food and beverage. But the actual science behind it, the craft behind it, the art behind it, it's amazing to me how many different parts come together to create a glass of whiskey. I've got a background in chemistry and biology. I get to utilize both making whiskey. I mean, there is just as much emphasis put on microbiology as there is on chemical analysis, sensory analysis, grain chemistry. I just love how it all comes together. Just engineering through and through, right? I mean, the other picture behind me is a diagram of a column still. That's not my background as far as how these engineers put these stills together, but that's such an important part of the process. So I just love how so many fields come together to help create this really complex and amazing group of spirits that we get to use to enjoy and celebrate life. TED is a non-distilling producer. Those are our core buyers. Now, we could have buyers on the site that are investors or brokers, but our core buyer is a non-distilling producer brand. They come to Barrel Hub because we can provide, or we do provide, a large diversity of barrel inventory, whiskeys made all across the country, different mash bills, different ages, different cooperage suppliers, different char levels, different toast levels, all of the above. We really push transparency. So TED, the non-distilling producer brand owner, is going to be able to see pricing. It's not opaque, it's not shrouded, it's not, well, give me your best price. It's right there on the website. What's available? How many barrels are available from this lot that TED is interested in? TED can also make an offer. If he wants to go into a bidding process, he can do so seamlessly and anonymously on the site with the seller. So it is all anonymous platform. If he wants to try to really lowball a seller, he can do so, and it's anonymous when he does, and the seller can either decide to accept, reject, or counterback. But the point is, the core goal for Barrel Hub is to deliver non-distilling producers with as much transparency and flavor-driven data as their distillery counterparts get to experience. So Barrel Hub is a B2B marketplace. It is meant for industry members. Our core buyers are going to be non-distilling producers. That said, our mix of sellers is diverse. It could be, and it is, distilleries selling excess bulk whiskey, contract distilleries that's their primary business is selling bulk whiskey, investors. There are plenty of investors in this space that own bulk whiskey and are actively looking for buyers. We welcome brokers to the site. And then sometimes it's very common to have brands, NDPs included, that are looking to balance stocks that they own. And so they can get on the site and not just buy, but also sell inventory that they don't need. So while we're always trying to target the end user as our buyer, which is the NDPs, our mix of sellers is diverse. Now, ultimately, anybody could be both a buyer and a seller on Barrel Hub. We're not restricting this. If you are an investor and you want to buy barrels, you can. We're just building our site and our marketplace in a way that really facilitates the goals of the NDPs to help them create really special whiskeys that will drive the category forward. And other spirits too one day. Right now it's just whiskey, but we would love to, one day we'll look at evolving into rum and other tequila, other spirit types. As a distiller for 10 years, and one that came from the science side of the business, kind of approach the craft through science. I mean, I do have a PhD in plant genetics, and my project was all centered around developing corn varieties for whiskey. So, I mean, I'm a scientist and a whiskey maker through and through. I put so much emphasis on understanding how flavors, both good and bad, developed in our whiskeys when I was a distiller at TX. We didn't have to always relay every bit of information to the consumer. That wasn't the point. The point was to really understand our whiskey. When I left TX and launched Barrel Hub and Advanced Spirits and started to partner with brands, partner with NDP brands, through liquid procurement, it hit me the level of detail that we could provide to them, what they were used to receiving, was so shallow compared to what a distiller is able to actually access and have insight into when they're making their whiskey from scratch at the distillery. I didn't think that made sense. Just because a brand is built on sourcing bulk whiskey, built on the concepts of innovative blending, finishing techniques, whatever it is, there is no reason why they shouldn't have the same level of flavor data delivered to them as their DSP counterparts. And as someone that is obsessed with flavor chemistry and sensory science, to provide transparency in the bulk market, because for too long it's been plagued by pricing inconsistencies, or you can say price gouging in some cases, plagued by a lack of what's actually out there. You know, these brands didn't have a good place to go to really get a feel for, oh, here's what's available on the bulk market. So those were important pillars of Barrel Hub. But equally important was that flavor-driven data aspect. And so we don't just deliver the superficial details such as distiller, mash bill, and age. Those are important parts of, you know, the symphony of flavor, but they're just a few instruments, right? We need to provide the entire ensemble to these customers of ours so they really can make the best decisions on what whiskeys to procure to meet their flavor, innovation, marketing goals, whatever it is. It's easy to access the marketplace. Our website is barrel-hub.com. It is B2B, but as long as you are in some way, a member of the industry, which I think most of the listeners of this will be, it's a very quick and easy registration process. If you do want to touch base, there's a contact us page on the site. You can call, you can email, we'll respond within very quickly, with sometimes minutes, sometimes an hour or two, but very quick responses. And we're here to help. It's not just me, there's a team behind Barrel Hub, everybody from operations to whiskey making type of backgrounds to the finance and accounting and tech. We're all here to help facilitate our customer base.